1987, and I'm in a screening room on the Universal lot to watch Jackie Brown as a guest of Bobby Forrester's. Now, as a longtime fan of Elmore Leonard's, I thought it was a terrific adaptation of Rum Punch, and Bobby was solid as always. That man deserved the second act that film gave him. Anyway, after the screening, he asked me if I wanted to meet Mr. Tarantino, and I said sure. So he takes me up to him and says, "Quentin, I want you to meet an old buddy of mine, Marty Lydecker." Well, Quentin Tarantino's eyes widen, and he almost screams out, "Wait, are you the Marty Lydecker?" To which I replied, "I'm a the?" I told him yes, and the first question that came out of his mouth was, "How are you still alive?" And I said, "Well, not by clean living, that's for sure." Now, it turns out that Key Video had released a collection of rare Senate shorts on VHS in the mid-'80s that he had at his video store, Video Archives. And it seems that Mabel Normand, accidentally getting an aphrodisiac instead of rheumatism medicine, played better in the mid-'80s than in the mid-'20s. He went on and on about how funny it was, and I told him that the one time we showed that short in the theater, no one laughed. However, we did have one couple spontaneously screw in the third row. Mr. Tarantino said this surprised him not at all, because the short was, in his words, horny as fuck. He then told me that if the short had come out in the 60s, it would have been considered daring and at one with the work coming out of the Czech New Wave. And then he said that he wished I had continued directing. Well, by now it was getting late and Bobby offered to drive me home. I thanked Mr. Tarantino for the kind words and congratulated him on the picture. But I left that screening room shaken to my core. For years, I was convinced that I had failed, that I didn't have the chops to be a real filmmaker. And that night I realized that maybe I'd been wrong, that maybe my career could have gone in a different direction. At that moment I realized, screw it, I'm going to make another film. I'll call in some favors and get it done. I went to sleep that night, excited to start another chapter in my life. The next morning, it took me almost 2 hours to get out of bed, and that's when I realized, oh yeah, filmmaking is a young man's game. The fact that the only film I made had its fans would have to be enough. Now if I could just figure out how to get my hands on the royalties.